Hello and welcome. I'm Cindy Daychuk with Queen Bee Creations. Thanks for joining me today on the channel. If you haven't already subscribed, I invite you to hit that button, keep us coming at you. And if you have, thanks so much. Today, so here's the thing. I do some junk journaling classes, and it involves having to rip pages out of books. And let's face it, we all have old books in our home that we end up trying to donate, or tons of them end up just going to the dumps. So because I've had lots of these extra pages, which I try and use up in all kinds of different ways, I decided to try and come up with a craft using these. So how to make something out of these rather than just using them as glue backings and that kind of stuff. How to actually make something out of the pages themselves. So you don't have to do junk journaling to do this. You could have an old book that you're just going to remove the pages out of, in which case if it's a hardcover, keep the hardcover. I'll probably come up with something to do with those too. So what we are gonna do is we're gonna make a wreath. Now, I happen to have this wreath frame, which I think I got for $1. It's a little awkward for some of the wreaths that I do because it's just got kind of this peaked thing, but it'll be perfect for this. You could, if you've got a grapevine wreath, you could just do it directly on that. You could, a straw wreath, you could glue directly on that. I just need something to be able to glue all of my paper onto, right? It's a little awkward with this. So you may or may not need to do this next step. Now, because I'm a shop, I have a lot of packing paper. So this comes in big sheets. A lot of my stuff comes wrapped in this, and I save the sheets to be able to use when I'm shipping out. And I buy some, so I just cut it down into strips. This is maybe about 2 inches wide, but what I thought was if I wrapped this frame with it, then I could glue my other paper wreath elements onto the paper. If that makes sense. You're with me? So what I thought that I would do is just simply start by taking this first wrap and kind of gluing it down, and then just kind of wrapping this paper all the way around just so that this wreath form is covered and that I have a little bit of a surface to be able to put all of my pages on. So to start with, this is all that I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue these around all the way around to create just a surface I can use so that I have something. Maybe that one should overlap a little bit more, just so that I have something that my other page is going to stick to. So I'll come back at you when this is done. We have our wreath form all covered, and it didn't even take a full page. So you could do this with newspapers, you could do it with more book pages, just wrap them around, cut them into just some strips. I just was using what I had. I invite you to do the same. Now the first thing that we're going to need to make prior to start gluing is some leaves. So we're going to just take our book pages. Let me just grab a couple here. And I think I can get 3. Yeah. See about this. All right, so I can get 3 of this size. Now you're going to go with whatever size leaf is going to make sense for the size of the wreath form that you're using, And how you fold up your page is going to be dependent upon the size of leaf that you want, right? So this one I was able to, my pages are this size, not a huge book. So I folded it in 3 so that I could have that size leaf. Now what I am going to do is get this cut out. And you could save these paper scraps for paper making. If you haven't caught the paper making video, I'll drop the link in here. But these scraps, these old book pages would be perfect if you're going to then just cut them up into bits and be able to use them in some paper making. So no need to waste anything. So all of these little leaves, what we do want to do is just kind of fold them in half and just kind of score them down the middle, because we want our leaves to have a little bit of dimension, a little bit of shape. We don't want them to just be flat and lying flat. So if we score them down the middle, then they're going to kind of sit up and be raised. So we're going to need a bunch of leaves made. So get them all kind of cut out, or a bunch of them. I mean, you can stop part way and cut more if you need them, right? Hard to know exactly how many leaves you're going to need until you get going and you're gluing. So depending on how close you're gluing them together, how big your form is, all that kind of fun stuff. But pretty simple, right? We're just going to make a bunch of leaves and then get them scored, get them separated. So that's one thing we're making. So we're going to do our leaves. I'm just putting my garbage off to the side for paper. And then we're going to make some little flowers. We're going to make some little wound roses. Okay? Also super easy. Let me show you how we're doing that. Okay? We are going to take, now I've got 2 sizes there. Kind of slightly bigger, slightly smaller. Can you see the size difference? So this one is made from a circle that I cut out of half the page. So I fold the page in half, and it doesn't have to be an absolutely perfect circle. So you can see that my tape kind of goes off the sides. That's okay. So I'm just gonna kind of roughly cut out circles that are that size, and they don't have to be, you can see I'm not taking a lot of care and caution to cut them out perfectly circular, but I do have the fold here, so I do have to trim off that edge just so that they'll be separate. And then I wanted some that were slightly bigger, so this sort of roughly kind of fits on there. And let me go off to the side because I might fit some leaves down there. And I'm just going to cut out some slightly bigger circles. And what we're going to do, and I'll demonstrate with the bigger one so it's easier to see, okay? Actually, I'm going to cut them all at the same time now. Is we're just going to cut a spiral. And the wider that you cut, the outside, the taller those outside, kind of the taller the petals are going to be. Okay? So we're going to start winding it into our flower from the center, now from the outside in. So you can make the inside a little bit wider, the outside a little bit smaller. So I'm just kind of starting with a point. And I'm just going to start spiraling this in. And you can see there's no real magic to getting this perfect. we got to separate them. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna take some kind of a dowel, pencil. I just have the end of a paintbrush. And you are going to start by just winding this around. So kind of keep the bottom of it, the bottom edge, close to your pencil or paintbrush. And you can have the top, which is going to be the open part of your flower, you can have that be loose, okay? So it doesn't have to be perfect yet because it'll kind of open up after, but you are going to kind of start following that bottom line as you're rolling it. And so you can see my top starts to open up a little bit, but I'm keeping that base as tight as I can as I try and go around my circle. And we're just gonna roll, roll the whole thing. So you start getting into tighter corners. Until we get to that center piece that we did not spiral, because that's going to be our base. So now I'm going to take my finger against this base and I'm going to gently push this wound piece off of my base. And I'm just going to kind of turn this so it's kind of sitting on my base, and I'm just going to kind of holding it in place, just kind of start tapping it, but loosening it up, so I'm allowing it to unravel a bit so that my rose isn't too tight. So I'm just kind of letting it pop open a bit so I get a little bit of width. I'm going to pinch it together with my fingers so I've got my base, and it's the base I'm going to stick my hot glue on. Okay, kind of spread that around, then take that rose, twist it around on that base, and then put it in the center and just hold it in place while that glue kind of sets up. And then that becomes my rose. So that's a taller rose than I had before because I cut this wider. It's a bigger rose than the little ones that I did. So you can get all kinds of different sizes, just even from the same size of this, depending upon how wide you cut it. So these roses become part of our decoration. Now you could choose to do all paper roses all the way around your wreath. You could do, as I'm thinking of, I'm going to do a bunch of leaves, and then leave a whole section that I'm going to do all of the roses. And I'm going to show you the last thing that we're going to make. I don't know if I'm going to need this last thing or not, but I'll show it to you just in case I end up adding it in at the end and you don't wonder, where the heck did that come from? Okay, so I'm just going to let it kind of unravel a little bit, loosen up. Let some of those outer spirals, the outer petals kind of form. Take my glue and then dab this one down. And there's that little rose. So you can see this size versus that first one we did, which was much bigger. So they're going to sit very differently, give me some different height, different width variation. So those, we want to get a bunch of those made up ahead. And again, I can add more in later. The other thing that I wasn't sure if I would want or need, but I thought I might want to have maybe, sticking out a little bit and then having some roses in are more like some leafy twiggy branches, leafy twiggy branches. So what I did to make these, I've only made one, so this, was I took a book page and I cut it into little strips. And I have some little tiny petals, these are about 1 inch long, that I cut the same way that I cut the big leaves. I cut the small leaves. So just a different size. And then I took some craft wire. So it's kind of already wrapped. If you have some thin wire that's not wrapped, you could use that. There's no magic to this. All that I was looking for was something that once it was done into my wreath, I could kind of twist it and bend it so I got a little bit of dimension and it didn't seem so flat. All right, so what I did was cut 3 little pieces and then 1 slightly longer piece. Okay, and then for each of those 3 little pieces, I need 2 leaves. I'm going to take 1 and I'm going to put some hot glue, just little dabs of it. You could do this with craft glue as well and just let it kind of sit off to the side to firm up, but I'm going for speed here. I'm going to put one of my shorter pieces down the middle, lay my other leaf on top, and then just squeeze it to seal. So again, I was not quite as fast as I should have been. Faster when I'm not talking. And again, for these, I like to then fold them in half so that there's a little bit of dimension to them. So we're gonna get 3 of those done, and then I'll show you how to assemble it. All right, once I have my 3 little leaves done, what I am gonna do is take this narrow strip, put a little tiny bit of glue on the tip of it, and I'm going to angle it very narrow, and then start wrapping it tight around that entire stem, because I want everything to be, have the paper look, everything to be in the book look. I'm just gonna roll this all the way down and have it covered in the paper. When I get to the base of it, I'll just take another little dab of, whichever, of glue to be able to hold it in place. And continue rolling it, and then I can just cut off the excess. All right, so this is my first one. And then what I want to do is I want to start adding in these others. So I'm going to take my glue. I'm going to start off my next one the same. So if you're using hot glue, just careful of your fingers for this because it's a little bit finicky. Right, and once I've gone down a little bit, I'm going to add it onto my first one and then start rolling my paper around both of them so that they're now attached onto the same stem. Okay? And then just glue this off. And I'm going to do the same thing for the last one. If when you get down there, you realize you don't have as much of a stem as you might want, you can add a piece in, right? So you could make it go longer if you need to, if you didn't start with a long enough piece. Totally up to you. I just need some glue here because I started to tear my paper, which again, glue's your friend, unless it burns you, and it's not so much a friend anymore. All right, I've got some of my stuff made, and I'm like, let's just get gluing and see how many more things I need or don't need. So we're starting with the leaves. And I am thinking that I'll start maybe a little bit on the outside. I'm just wondering how many I need. Just kind of thinking. Okay, let's do one. Two. And maybe upwards, so 3 at a time. Okay, and I'm gonna have to kind of keep going around this way until I get to a point where I could maybe look at adding my florals. So if I do those, yeah, so I think it's gonna be 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. So if I have my 3, then the next ones will come in here. And then the next ones will go kind of overlapping so that they can all kind of piece in or overlap better that way. That's got it. Okay, you can start to see how this is going to look. It's going to be very full ultimately, right? So we're going to take this all the way around and get this all glued on. And I'm definitely going to need, way more leaves than I cut. So that's going to be the biggest volume. I think I'm fine for flowers, fine for the other things, but I'm going to need a lot more of these leaves just to create that fullness. But I think that 3, 2, 3 is going to be just about right as I start going around this and again, creating some of that fullness. So I'm going to carry on with that and then come back at you when I start getting around up here so you can see how it's looking and shaping up, and then we can futz with flowers and things together. This is where I'm at. So what I did do was I elected, rather than going all the way around, I started to realize then that would be problematic when I got up to the top, because I'd have some going one way and some spiking in, and it'd be awkward when I went to try and do my flowers. So what I did do was I got about halfway and then I started going the other way, and I think it looks okay. I did a couple of little halfers, half leaves here just to fill in a little bit. And now, now it's time to kind of look at how the rest of this is going to fit together. And I'm kind of looking at whether I need to make more of these kinds of things, whether I'm going to use these at all, and how my flowers are all gonna fit in there. So I may just try and do some flowers first and then see if I add those in, or if I just stick with regular leaves. So I have a number of my flowers. Hopefully it's enough. I think it's more than enough. And what I'm looking at doing is just kind of starting with the bigger ones and nestling them down in. And we'll maybe just get a couple glued down to start with. And then start taking it from there. So we'll get these glued down and kind of holding position. And then we'll see what else we need to add in. And I'm thinking like some of the regular leaves, I may use as filler with just, you know, cutting off half and that kind of thing, just to see how that works. But what I'm going to do is start right now by kind of working my way out and back, so that as I'm nestling these flowers in, that I am doing it in a way that leaves me space. If I started here and then I added some here, I might end up with not enough room in the middle to be able to add some. So I'm gluing it down to the paper. You can see this is the start of my flowers up at the top. And I'm just going to continue to add them in ways that kind of make sense. Maybe. And I'm just kind of seeing how it goes, evening it out side by side. So these two look okay. Add it in down over here. And more glue. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to kind of nestle these flowers in as I go and see how it all starts to come together here. And here's the finished wreath. I gotta tell you guys, this is super cute. I like this a lot. I didn't know for certain. Let me just kind of look at it. Yeah, I didn't know for certain how it's gonna turn out, but I think that's really adorable. So really, really an inexpensive project. This is old book pages from a book that I had lying around. It was a dollar wreath form from the dollar store, old paper wrapped around it, and some glue stick. That's it. A little bit of wire, I guess I used. Not much of anything. And I think that that just looks super cute and neutral. I mean, you could spray paint this now if you chose to. So if you wanted it colored or just highlighted or whatever, you could certainly do that. You could tea stain or coffee stain all the paper that you used to give it a little bit of that aged, worn kind of look before you would cut out your pieces and make it. So if you wanted to coffee dye any of the pages or just dye them period, you could do that too. I love it just neutral. Obviously, the older the book, the more yellow the paper is going to be. This is a fairly newish book, so the papers are a little bit more pristine. But how cute is that? So, you know, the shape of your leaves is going to make it have a completely different look. You could do much smaller leaves and more of them. That's going to give it a different look. So many ways to be able to personalize this. But you know what? Super quick, super cute little project, and a great way to be able to just use up paper, things that you have on hand. Let me know what you think of this one. This was really just born out of having a lot of those loose pages hanging around and needing to do something out of it. So you experimented along with me. So let me know what you think. I love to hear your comments and to hear what you have to say. Give me some of your ideas too for extra paper and extra pages. I'm sure that you've got some great ones as well. And as always, I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Until then, take care.